Раз, раз. Один, 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 два раз. Один, раз.
Test. Too strong. Strong. Test.
Один,
Too strong.
один,
Too late
один,
is strong.
один, два раз.
Test. 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 Sounds good.
Один, раз. Один.
Test. Test. about this? Sure, you don't need this?
We will be starting in 2 minutes. We will be starting in 2 minutes. Let's start. Maybe we can. Let's start then. So, hello everyone. Here's a lot of you. Welcome on today's meetup, and we are really glad that you all managed to come. We have a lot to share with you today, but first, huge thanks to our amazing sponsor, Wix.com, for hosting us today and helping to make this event possible. Wix is a great company with strong culture and awesome people working in it. We are very glad they are sponsoring this event. And this event is very special for us. Today is our first anniversary, and we are glad that you are here to share and celebrate it with us. So our community is 1 year now. I know this is a small number, but it means really a lot for us. Yeah, this is huge. And whoa. And during the past year, we conducted 15 events in 2 different cities with 42 talks by 31 awesome speakers with total of 1,270 unique attendees. This is really a lot. And we can't say anything but wow. Back there a year ago when we just started this, we just wanted a place where we can gather sometimes and talk about tech stuff, share new things, learn something, share experience. When we posted our first event on meetup.com, we couldn't even thought that more than 2 people will come. But actually there was almost 100 of people. I remember us grabbing the chairs from all over the Grammarly office to fit everyone in that small room in the February 2017. Pizza didn't arrive on time, but we all really had a great time. That was a moment when we understood that we want to do more and we really want to grow this community. And even though we continued, we didn't expect that something that we started just for fun could grow so fast and turn into a whole new community. And we are really glad it did. Now we are the fastest growing tech community of Ukraine, and in the same time we are the largest, one of the largest communities. And actually we wanted to sum up this year, share with you some highlights and memories in a collage. But when we started gathering all different photos we wanted to add, we just couldn't make a collage of this. So we made a video, and here it is. No video. Oh. Есть видео? О! And of course, all of this couldn't be even possible without an awesome team. Now there are 5 of us, and I think this is not a limit. And of course, what is the birthday without the present? We prepared some these amazing T-shirts, and we want to give out 3 of them to 3 people of you, just randomly picked from the list. So the first one is Mark Shulgin. Woo! I think I just yeah, give it to him. Next one is Franz van Ed. Whoa! Yeah, yeah. This is. And the next one is Maria Zau. Maria? Marina. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Oh. So thank you all for being part of this journey and making this community alive. I think that there is a lot more waiting for us ahead, more events, formats, other goodness in the future. And talking about the future, we have something to announce today. It is our first workshop. It is a full-day workshop about TDD in React, which will take place on 10th March. So it's less than a month from now. And registration opens on Monday. Yeah, registration opens on Monday. This workshop will be led by Yaniv Yefraim. It's a tech lead from Wix, from Tel Aviv's office. He will tell about how to build a real-world React application with TDD. So it's really awesome. You can find it at meetup.com. And I think everything you want to share, photos, your thoughts, questions, you can post on Twitter with the hashtag #ReactKyiv. And I think it's enough talking for now. So let's start the meetup. We have 3.5 talks today. And first one is by Ran Greenberg. Ran is from Wix, and he came here from Tel Aviv, and we'll be talking about React Native, introduction to React Native from the perspective of front-end developer. So welcome, Ran. The stage is yours.
Again. I want mirror. Right. Because she changed something. Just keep like this. Sorry. same as we did before. Opa. Can you change just the... Optimize for? No. Scaled. Good. It was this. Before it was good. No, we are on the way, I think. Yeah, it's not the full. Now it's good. Now it's good. I'm not, I need to see if the... Yeah, it's good. It's right. Yeah.
Well, hi guys, and sorry for the delay. Hey. Well, I don't used to talk with this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm Ran, and I'm a mobile developer from Wix in Wix mobile team. Originally, I'm an iOS developer, and I don't have any experience with React. I know just React Native, so probably all of you know better than me React. But I'm about to talk about React Native here. So first, let's talk a little bit about Wix. As you probably know or not, Wix is a website builder. Each one of you want to own a website, can just sign up and build his own website. And we have a mobile app, which is to manage the website on the go through in the mobile. To the Wix mobile app, we have approximately 2 million downloads. We have many installations per day, which is like 4,000 installations per day, many on monthly. We have a lot of active users. The most thing that I want to emphasize that we built our app since day one in React Native, which is, I think, more or less the largest app out there that built in React Native from day one. We are approximately 60 developers in 4 sites. We have 2 sites in Ukraine, Kyiv, Dnipro, Tel Aviv, and Vilnius. Something really impressive that we really believe in the open source. We have 62 React Native open source, and I'll share with you the link later at the last slide. So enough talking about Wix. So let's speak a little bit about React Native. So you all know JavaScript, right? I hope. And you all know React. You should know React. Hence, you know React Native. Hence, you don't really need me. So thank you. That was me. Thank you. But I lied a little bit. I think you do need me a little bit. Not too much. So let's deep dive a little bit. So what is React Native? How does it even work? Wait, but first let's define what is React. So in short, React, building for us a virtual DOM by typing a JSX inside our JS files, which is components, React does his all fancy merge algorithm, all the magic, and really define what is really changed. And after this, it spits out an actual DOM. So what is React Native? The two first steps are exactly the same. The virtual DOM been created by React. React does its fancy merge again. But instead of spit out a virtual DOM, it actually spit out native views, which is one for Android, one for iOS. It's actually compiled to native, and they actually build a view hierarchy based on the UI views from iOS, for example, and views in Android. Let's compare a little bit about React and React Native. First, we have the same lifecycle component. As we all know, the component did mount, component will mount, component will unmount. So actually, we're familiar with all the component lifecycle. We have the same render mechanism. Like each React component has its own render. It must have a render. One thing that we need to understand that React is a JavaScript library. To building a complex and really efficient user interface. And React Native is a native framework. This code is actually really compiles to native code. Let's make a small comparison about the component that we all know from React. So as you can see, this is a code snip for your left one is React, and the right one is React Native. The div is actually a views. The p tag and the span tag is actually a text. In React Native, button is the same button, just with capital letter. Input and text input are more or less the same. And we have many stuff that we are not familiar in React Native, like list views and flat list and scroll views that most of the time you're getting for free from the browser. But we are not getting into this in the scope of this lecture. So as you can see here, you all understand the left code, and you should understand the right code. It's exactly the same. I just changed the tags. Let's speak a little bit, not too much, about style. React Native, you can't really write CSS in React Native. React using Flexbox for the view hierarchy, and you cannot really write CSS. Actually, all the styles are inline styles, which, as far as I know, in React is bad practices. It's just from rumors. It's a bad. We are not supposed to make any style inline. And in React Native, we must. We don't have other ways. Same here. As you can see, this is on your left is React code, and on the right is React Native code. And instead of just define a CSS, I define a style sheet create with the view and his style key that I want. Let's ask some questions that you might have. So basically, we are writing one application, right? So basically, you're wrong, because we are not writing one application. We're writing two applications. Thanks God, we have two platforms. We're writing one for iOS and one for Android. For iOS is IPA, and for Android is APK. Another question that you might have, all the code is exactly the same, right? Can you guess? Good. So you're wrong, but basically you're right, because you guessed right. So change the wrong to right. The two platforms are different. They are different platforms. Sometimes we want to really make the difference between the code that we write for iOS and the code that we write for Android. React Native gives us this engine to do this by adding a suffix to our JS file. The suffix is android.js and ios.js. And of course, we can have a different native implementation. But how? How all the stuff really works? So React Native really likes San Francisco. As you can see here, this is the Golden Gate, which is a bridge. So I explained a little bit. We're not deep dive into the bridge. I'm going to explain by a super simple demo. When the user click on the screen, on a button on the screen, everything happen, and then something gonna pop out from the screen. Okay, so the user tap on the screen, the native handler catch it, and actually pass it through the bridge to the JavaScript. The JavaScript does all his logic, whatever, changing states and whatever it does. Then React does all the magic and pass it from the JavaScript to the native that something changed and you need to rebuild the native views. Finally, the user see what's something changed on the screen. So basically we have two realms. We have the native realms and we have the JavaScript realms. The bridge is helping for us for messaging. It message from the native to the JavaScript and vice versa. Let's see a small demo. Whoop. So you're familiar with this screen. Big enough? Everybody can see? Yeah. Good. Okay. So I did a small demo, the demo that I just talked. When I press the hit me, we're gonna see the whoopee-doo. Okay, the whoopee-doo text, and when I'm gonna click it again, it's gonna disappear. Let's see just a little bit. Let's feel a little bit that the previous slide wasn't really lie, that something really happening on the bridge. This is Xcode. This is the IDE for iOS. I use it for now just to show you the log. Too much. Sorry. Good. I wanted this line. As you can see here, this line, the native informs the JavaScript that the touch starts. Many events are coming from the native 2.js. And finally, the JavaScript informs the native, ask for the native, please create a view for me with this text. So this is just how we can really monitor the bridge and see all the messaging that we passed through. So to sum it up, this is the two message that I wanted to show you. That's the touch start and the JavaScript really answer to the native. Let's see another demo, which is probably you ask yourself, if I know some native for each platform at least, and I want to use it. I want to really write some native. Okay, so this is the demo. First, it says portrait, and after I turn the screen, refresh the app, it says landscape. same as in Android. It's a good question. It's because I'm lazy. And I didn't listen to the rotation event that the native told to the, in iOS. But you can do it easily. Even React Native support orientation change. So don't be lazy. Okay. So we're back to iOS. I showed this on iOS, and then I showed the Android. Here, it's a completely native. It's a it's Objective-C. Here, I export RCT is for React. I expose a module, name orientation. Over the orientation, we have the method getCurrent. When the JavaScript trigger this this function, so my code is running, and as it say here, it listens to it asking, it query the device orientation and return the string for this orientation. This is the actual code. This is the code for iOS, and this is the code for Android. They are basically the same, and I keep the same API for iOS and for Android. As you can see here, on Android, it's exactly the same. The name of the component is orientation, and I register a method which says getCurrent. This is the JavaScript code. Whoops. This is the JavaScript code. The font is big enough. Okay. This is JavaScript code. As you can see here, on the constructor, it's calling to this. It invokes this method, which is asking await over the orientation and getCurrent. Just a small, an important point. Everything is that running over the bridge. It's asynchronous, so we must wait for an answer. The native can do a lot of stuff, and we need to wait for the native to finish, and then you're gonna give us a callback. Okay, so I query the native, the same one here with native model orientation. This is the one that I expose from the native that I showed you before. I talked before that we can have a suffix for Android and we can have a suffix for iOS. So let's see another demo. Oop. This is not a real error. I invent this error by purpose. Okay. Okay. This is a very common use case. For example, we have two text inputs. And for iOS, it's very common to add a button with the send word. And for iOS, it's very common to add an image with a purple plane. But I want to write the same code, finally. How can I do it? Here, this is the code that describes this screen. All the top is not really interesting. Just this. I render here a send button, and if you're going to be really with good eyes, you're going to see that I have two send buttons, one for iOS and one for Android. Let's see the iOS first. As I told you, for iOS, we want a text with a send word, and for Android, we want an image. We want to render an image. So this is exactly what we do. Okay, this is the code for this. I tried to keep it super simple. Of course, we can import platform from React Native and to have the same file, which we can select a small amount of code for iOS, a small amount of code for Android. For example, if we want a different background colors for each platform, for Android we want black, and for iOS we want gray. So we can ask the platform object that we import from React Native, which platform are we, and to react to this. Okay, the native world is more than 10 years. Bunch of work been done there. Let's say that we want to use an open source or some old code that we really like and really believe in, and we want to use it, but it's pure native. So how can we really do it? So it's another demo. Here is a completely different open source files that I download, one for iOS and one for Android. Is the analog clock. This is the JavaScript code for this. As you can see here, I render analog clock. What is analog clock? Analog clock is a required native component. When we expose component from the native, we have two options. We have native component, which we must bring back from the native, return from the native a view, and we have a native module, which is like we did before, the orientation. We just query the native, and we give back like the answer of the callback is getting back. Okay, so the analog clock. Let's see the code. So I did exactly the same that we did before. I expose a module, and here, instead of return something, I return the BAM analog clock. The BAM analog clock is the open source, the view that I downloaded, and I return it. As you can see here, this is the code for BAM analog clock. This is way too much code for clock, but it's a native. It's pure native. When someone developed this, it didn't know that we are going to use it for React Native. So the only thing that I write is just a wrapper. I expose this view with the help of the React Native macros to the JavaScript. Yeah, so you already saw this. This is the red screen of death. Get used to it, because most of the time your screen gonna look like this. And I added a demo for this. Hop, hop. Yeah. Actually, it's very annoying screen, but most of the time can be really helpful and really informative. As you can see here, it say that it can find the variable blah, and it point us where is the actual error. This is the code for the error. I try to render blah, and React Native doesn't really know what is blah, so we just pop out a red screen. Okay, so it's an intro, so I must to add getting started. So, whoop, should be React Native CLI. Okay, we npm install globally the React Native CLI. Then we just use this CLI for React Native init with our project name. Then we start the packager, and then we just run iOS and run Android. And then we all should to read the fucking manual. Okay? It's super important to read the fucking manual. Good. Some last tips. About debugging. For me, the best tool for debugging is React Native Debugger. It's an open source. It's a Mac app. You can use it freely. It's super awesome. You can even monitor the network requests, as Charles does. React Native recommend about Chrome debugger. For me, doesn't really work 100% of the time, so I don't like to use it so much. They also expose some super flaky React Native log iOS and log Android. I don't recommend to use it, but maybe sometime they're gonna improve this. And a small, super small words about performance. So performance is very important in native world. JavaScript is single-threaded. Both of the native platforms are multi-threading. It's the source of most of the problems that we have. We don't want to pass a base64 image over the bridge. We don't want to pass so much stuff over the bridge. We should and we must keep the bridge with low traffic. Most of the time that we're gonna start to feel very laggy, it's because of the bridge. It's because the bridge is super busy. We investigate this a lot at Wix. We try to keep the bridge happy, but we don't all the time succeed to do it. It's very interesting to even monitor the bridge and to really understand what's really going on there. A small word about animations. Animations are really common in native, which is very hard on React Native. We try to improve this, and the different approaches for React and React Native about animation is we don't have CSS animations, so we do have native drivers. We must use the native drivers for animations, unless the bridge won't be happy, and we don't want it. React Native about animation is not there yet, but big steps is going on there. So you just need to be updated with the latest React Native versions, which is sometimes painful because it's still not stable. They're breaking APIs very, very often. And basically, that's all. As I promised, you can find the open sources by React Native open sources of Wix. All the code for this presentation is in this open source. And here you can find me. So thank you.
Thank you, Ren. Maybe you have some questions? Questions to... Yeah? Okay.
Please fix your bug.
Sorry?
Please fix your bug.
Fix what?
Blah, blah. Just fix blah, blah.
Ah, to fix the blah, blah?
Yes.
Now?
Yes, right now.
Done, but let's do it like... Ah. You're right.
And text also.
And what?
Text.
Nah. Nah. Any other challenges?
Hi. You said about native code. How often you find yourself in need of writing native code? Maybe in case of your
It's a good question.
big application. Or everything can be
It's a
right.
good question. At the beginning, like 2 years ago, when we started with React Native, we wrote some native. We have a very famous open source React Native navigation. Even React Native mention us in their docs. It's a native navigation for React Native. You can see here. You see here the navbar. This is native. So we write a lot of native code here, and we maintain this. We also write a camera, which is native, just a camera view, React Native camera kit. Lately, we barely write native code. It's getting more mature, and you don't need, because people write it for you, or, as I showed before, wrap already existing native code for us, which is... No, at all. Not at all. Like if you understand that you need to learn Java or Swift or Kotlin or Objective-C, so no, you are ready to go with React Native.
Hello, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
I have experience with Cordova, please explain about memory. Maybe you have some thoughts about React Native, how it's reuse memory, and maybe have leaks or not.
Of course, everybody have leaks.
Yeah, maybe
so.
you have some concerns with React Native that you want to share. Thank you.
About memory? Memory leaks? I don't want to share memory leaks. It's mine. We had some, but each one is a specific case that we don't have something generally, like general problems. Each platform has his own problems. For example, Android, you have some memory problems when you deal with images. So React Native should solve it for you, but each case is a specific case. Sorry.
And last question here.
Okay, first of all, thank you for your awesome talk. It was personally, when you finished your talk in the middle, it was really great. My question is about the breach, and as far as I understood, it is the main drawback currently in the React Native platform, and the question is how better it could be in the future. Do they have a lot of options to improve it and to make it faster? Thank you.
First, the bridge is magic. It's magic for all of us in Wix. We try to investigate. Sometimes we don't really know what's really going on there because each React Native version is getting better or worse. It's the issues most of the time is not about the efficiency of the bridge. It's about bad code of not understand the world that you are working on. For example, if you're writing any animation, we depend, for example, just a real world example, because we want it to have a fancy scroll view, which is like bouncing the cell. It's hard. It's hard in React Native, but it's not because of the bridge. It's because of that we don't really passing. We shouldn't pass the animation over the bridge. We shouldn't pass stuff that related to the user events, to user touch events over the bridge. They try to do it. We can't get to 60 frames per second. This is what the device brings with 60 frames per second, and React Native is not there. So, but the bridge is not a problem. The efficiency of the bridge is not a problem. The problem is us. We need to understand the world for the, yeah.
Thank you, Ran. It was awesome. Before our break, there will be one short talk. I'm not calling it lightning talk because we know how Alexei deals with lightning talks. This will be a short talk about UX. Alexei will share some tips.
Yeah, there will be no code, so it will only take half an hour. I'm sorry. Просто HDMI. Лучше такой. Кликалка, я могу и так покосить.
Да, нормально.
Там всего по-честному. Раз, два, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 слайдов.
So only 10 slides. It should take 10 minutes.
For each slide. Ага. Ой-ой-ой. Шумно. Да. I'm really happy to be here again. Hey guys. Anyone who does Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know.
10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then a break. We will... Короче, 5 или 10 минут, и потом перерыв. И сюда, чтобы мы проветрим это помещение, и мы потом вернемся, и будет лучше. Вот.
Нормально. All right, let's do it. Yeah. So, hi again. I'm really happy to be here. Who doesn't know me? I'm Alexei, engineer from DataRobot, doing some open source, trying to talk about different interesting stuff here on React Kyiv. And, and today I just wanted to share one small thing that was like a lesson to me a while ago, and that's something that could probably give you some inspiration in doing user experience, in doing UI in general, in doing something for the web. In DataRobot, we're doing some machine learning automation. We're creating a product that actually brings machine learning to simple people, to companies that are not that kind of technology companies, just simple companies like insurance companies, banks, something else. And we really believe that by automating things, you're not just providing some fancy interfaces where people can connect things using drag and drop like we see it in the movies, but we really believe in actual automation where machines are doing the job instead of asking people for doing this job. And so in this machine learning hype, like you could possibly see a lot of articles, a lot of projects, you already using some of devices that powered by machine learning in any ways, like Siri or Alexa or any other smart devices in your home, listening to your voice 24 hours. And the actual machine learning is a lot of, it is consists a lot of different smaller technologies, smaller terms, smaller topics in science, and that's not something that can be easily learned by a single person. That's always something that you need to investigate through a particular route by actually knowing what you need to do. So that's the size of this topic. It doesn't allow using machine learning every day in your daily life or in your business. For example, you have a company that possibly can get some value from using machine learning in terms of optimization of resources, optimization of processes that you have, but you cannot see it, you cannot imagine it because of how complex this topic is. And even if you can find some examples, like our competitors, they usually provide some basic interface, well, sometimes even really fancy interface. I like the colors, I like fonts, but nothing else. Where you possibly get some automation in terms of you're possibly not even writing a code. However, you drag and drop some small pieces of configuration, you connect them together with line. You actually draw those lines by your hand, and that's what they call automation. That's not really automation because you still need to do work. You possibly don't understand the value of the work you do, and there is no insight for you for actually making decision in real life. That's a tool that just keeps you inside, keeps you doing the same work but in different manner. And so I really like this quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that's I guess, the best description of how automation should work. Like there should be no job for people. There should be only value from the requirements, from the data that is around those people. And so that's something that we're trying to do in DataRobot for a long already. And that's the main idea behind how we do in UI. Because comparing to other competitors, using our product is actually allows you to start using machine learning, start building predictive models, getting insights about your data without writing any code, without knowing any data science terms, or without knowing even statistics. You basically provide your data to the product, and everything else that that works under the hood, it provides you some decent insights in a user interface that actually is about your data, is about the things that can drive your decision in real life. There is no such things like different kind of metrics using different algorithms. There is no tons of data that doesn't make sense to you just because it's just some variables in different algorithms that are done by some crazy scientists in the past. And that's why the UI, the user experience about this UI is the way to do this magic. That's why providing better animations, providing only stuff that is actually valuable for people, that's the way to do this magic that is about automation. So this is the thing that actually gave me this lesson. That's the application that I was building for the last year in DataRobot. And what it does, it is basically for a single, we call it data point, that's how it's called. For a single data point, it provides essential set of visualization of prediction value. So without doing a lot of introduction in machine learning, for those who doesn't know, assuming you have some statistic data, for example, prices of the cars, or scores of games in the past, you can possibly build a model, some small black box that knows about how this data works, and uses this model, you can predict the future. So basically, long story short, machine learning is mostly about predicting the future, possible future, not actually something that will definitely happen. And so this particular interface provides, for example, basic prediction result, like here is a probability of some event, for example, probability of patient readmission. It can be probability of losing your job tomorrow, probability of winning the game in the poker, probability of buying a broken car, or anything else. The fact is, in different domains, in different tasks, where there's some probability, some percentage, there can be a single insight, single visualization that actually shows you the single value that you need to know. And in addition, instead of providing tons of tables, tons of additional numbers from different algorithms, we're using colors, we're using charts to show how it feels, like what this value is actually about. Like 75%, is it actually that big probability of an event? Possibly, yes. It's quite high in terms of all other probabilities of events in the past. However, if we could only lower it by, for example, 15%, it will be pretty normal in terms of like, well, it's still kind of high. If it's higher than 50%, it seems like. However, it's going to be in the peak of distribution, which means it's quite normal for our use case, for our data. And the actual value, that's almost the actual value that I learned, the way how I learned it, because as a front-end developer, I was just doing visualizations like this fucking thing should be here, but not there, and it should work on different screens. It should somehow fit in the iPhone and laptop that our CEO is using. However, what I learned was feedback from customers that saw this application, where people from banks, people from financial structures, people from car selling companies, they don't know much about machine learning other than hype and words. However, seeing this about their data, they're getting this aha moment. So here is how I get value. Here is my value that actually drives my decision in real life. So here's high probability. I probably should not do it with this data. For example, we can even provide why it's high probability. Because, well, you're trying to, for example, well, you're trying to sell a car that's actually broken, but the price is quite high. It's not about this particular case, but just as an example. So providing these small pieces of UI that could possibly, like, well, it's just a couple of hours of work. However, it took a lot of hours of work. Providing these small pieces of UI, but with value that actually makes sense to the end user who doesn't know about science, about machine learning, but they only know about their real life, their business. This is what make machine learning magic. This is what make actually automation the real automation. And so in DataRobot, we're trying to continue doing as more UI, as more user experience like this, so we can cover even more use cases. And if you're really interested in doing this kind of work, it's not trivial forms, it's not trivial buttons that should be moved 5 pixels on the right. You can drop me a message, and I will be really happy to describe what's the opportunity we're gonna have in the nearest future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexei. Now we'll have a 20-minute break, and I ask you to go out from this venue and go to the kitchen. There is some pizza, and we will let the fresh air in here, and then we'll have 2 talks about functional reactive programming and open source, and there is a surprise after it. So, happy break. Oh. Take your seats. We are starting in 5 minutes. We will continue like now. So take your seats. Here is a free seat here and there.
Сейчас я выключу. Yep.
So let's continue our meetup. We have 2 more talks to go. And first of all, I'm very sorry it's so hot in here. We learned the lesson, and next time the venue will be much bigger than this. So I guess it will never repeat. And I want to introduce Grigory Shekhet. He will talk about functional reactive programming in React. So the stage is yours.
So, hey guys. Hey Kyiv. How's it going? How's it going, Kyiv? Okay. So, my name is Grigory Shekhet. I'm software engineer, project lead at Grammarly. Also, I'm contributor into Mobix and Focal. I like functional languages like Haskell, ReasonML, Clojure, Scala. And actually, I believe in power of monads and FRP. So, I work in Grammarly where we develop the great Grammar Checker tool. Our main projects are web editor, extension for Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and Edge. And at first, I want to give a few words of thanks to our organizers, because right now it's like a first anniversary of React Meetup. The first React Meetup was a year ago. And I'm pretty glad to see a lot of new faces, because my last talk in Kyiv was 5 months ago. And I'm pretty glad to see new guys here. And at first I want, yeah. So, today I want to tell you about how to be reactive. And at first I have a few questions. So, who use some reactive frameworks or reactive language in their everyday life, in their products? So, can you raise your hands? Okay, not enough. Okay. So, at first I want to ask you, like, what is reactive programming? And when I have such question, I just go to Google and just Google it. So I open google.com and write reactive programming. After that, I open the first link, and I'm the similar user. I will open Wikipedia and just read that reactive programming is an asynchronous paradigm based on data streams, some async data flows, some operators, and there was like a set of words, but what does it mean for us? And here is a first example, a simple example. So we have 2 squares, A and B, and we have a square C. Square C will be a sum of our A and B. When we change A, it will automatically change a C. When we change B, it will also automatically change our sum. So let's explain our squares, our Excel example, like a streams. So here is a stream A. It has a value 1. Here is a stream B. It has a value 2. After that, we have some magic box. And this magic box is a combine of our 2 streams, A and B. Finally, we have our result stream, stream C. It's 3. When we change a stream B, it will automatically change a stream C. And it became a 6. When we change A, it will automatically change stream C also. And etc., etc., etc. So, finally we see that right now we have 2 streams, and A and B. Stream is some async data flow, like array. And we can just combine those streams and receive appropriate value. But what it's mean for us front-end developers, what it mean? We are front-end engineers. Why we need those streams? Actually, we are front-end engineers, and we understand that development of the product is a hard thing. Because when we start develop our application, at first it's like our little baby. We grow it, we add a new hipster stack to it, and after that our application grows, became a bigger, and our big application became something like this. Something like this guy. Not like children. So, oh, it's much more better. We think how we can develop our application in a new way. We try to find some new paradigm. And here came reactive paradigm. Because in our application we have one stream, our main stream is a stream of user events. And the application on the screen is our web editor, the web editor at Grammarly. And inside our web editor we use React.js. We use reactive paradigm. Okay, so there is some reactive paradigm that we can use in our application. But how we can just do that today or tomorrow, how we can implement reactive paradigm? There are a lot of implementations like Kefir, Beacon, Mod.js, but I strongly recommend you to use React.js because it implements the whole specification of observable. And when I tell you that it includes the whole specification, I mean this slide. Because the specification of observable is too big. And there is like too many operators. I can just put all of them in one slide. And however, when we see this slide on the React meetup, we think that it's like not okay. Because it's like an Angular way to develop the application. The Angular way is every time to go to the documentation, understand that we don't know some API, and implement it. Actually, who uses Angular? Can you raise your hand? Because the React way is to read documentation in one night, after that in the morning, go at work and just implement a new feature. But we forgot about one thing, that when we start to implement a new feature, we shoot 1,000 times in our head, in our leg, because we don't know the appropriate architecture. So we try to find Redux, some architecture. After that, we understand that there are a lot of forms in our apps. Our code base is too big, so we need a Redux form. After that, we know that we have 1,000 side effects. So Redux Sync, Redux Saga. Finally, we have a router, so we need to learn how works Redux router. And at least we have so many data that our application is frozen. So we need to reselect. And etc., etc. So we understand that when we code our application using React, we need to learn so much information like guys who use Angular. Because React doesn't provide us the appropriate solutions. And we learn everything every day, and it's cool. It's fun, because we are front-end engineers. We are engineers, and it's okay to learn something new every day. That is why I think you can give Rx a chance. Actually, the common talk about React.js look like something like this. So some guy told that React.js is a cool thing. After that, he explained thousands of operators, Rx operators. You know that there is like too many Rx operators. And after that, they show some demo, explain why this demo is cool, and conclusion. Actually, I don't want to tell all about the operators because it's too boring. There are a lot of videos in the YouTube that you can just Google and know which operators are cool. Tell about theory is boring. Let's quote some example. So here is the first example. So some simple demo. We have a width range and we have a high range. After that we have some square and a square value. We can change the width of our square and height. So how HTML look like? So we have a width element, a width input, we have a height input, and we have our result block, which will show us a square value and our square. So right now we have a width, and we can explain the change of our width like a stream. So it will be a stream of width events. We can get the stream easily using Rx. So we can just write rx.dom.input. Just our width element, and we receive our width element stream. But we don't need the stream of width events. We need a stream of width value. So we can just use a simple iterator called map and just get our values. The values of our target element. After that, we can just add a simple default value using start with. And finally, we can just subscribe to our width value and change inline styles of our square element. Just our square element dot style dot width and our current width value. The same thing we can do with height. So we can get a stream of height events, get its value, after that subscribe, and change inline styles. Okay, so right now we have a width and height streams, but we need to get a square value. And actually this task look like our example. So we have some magic box, which will be combine our width and height value. And we will receive our square value stream. And in Rx we have such operator. It calls combine latest. So here we can, so combine latest operator can get our streams, some set of streams with the value and high value, for example, right now. And after that we can just receive our current value. So our current value of width and height. And when one of those, for example, width will change and height will change, it will automatically call another operator. So the next operator, our map operator. And finally, we will receive a square value. So right now, our code look like something like this. And what it is interesting that we have a width value, and we initialize it only one time. So we have only one instance for width value, and we can use it in 2 times. So we can use it to change our stylus, and also we can use it to get our square value. The same thing we have for our high value. So right now, you can see that we can use our values for 2 times, and I'm lucky. And right now we can create only one instance for our value and use it in 2 times. So right now we can describe our logic declarative and make our code more clear. Okay. So in our first example, we use inline stylus. But it's not too good to use inline stylus because it's not like a CSS, it had a bad performance. So it's much more better to use a CSS or CSS in JS. So can we make a CSS reactive? Do you have some ideas? But can we make CSS in JS reactive? Okay. So here's Oleg Slobodsky. He is author of GSSS. And on October of 10, in the previous year, he announced a new version of GSSS called GSSS 9. And this new version can allow you to render observables. So right now we can use observables for CSS selectors. in CSS and JS. And when I saw it, I was too happy because I like reactive programming. And right now I can write a reactive CSS. So I retweet this tweet and write to Oleg that, man, it's too good, it's a cool thing, it's a great work. So our first example using CSS or GSSS will look pretty simple. So we can just describe our CSS rules using observables. So our width value, dot map, and our current value with pixels, and the same for height. So this example is like too easy for me to code, and I don't have enough like challenge when I do that. So that is why it's like boring for me, because it's pretty easy. And right now is a 17th slide of my talk, and I want to go back and tell a story, because much more cooler to tell a story than to show a slides. So it was October of 2017. I take part at ReactiveConf, where Oleg take part also, and we fly back from Bratislava to Kyiv, and here is a photo of those plane. I spent nearly 20 minutes to find it in my iCloud. So it's the real plane, and we wait for this plane with Oleg, and I told him that, man, GSS with RX is too cool thing, I want a little bit to contribute into GSSS. And he told me, yeah, man, you're welcome. So he asked me to code this swing cat. Right now, this swing cat was, previously this swing cat was in CSS animation using keyframe, and right now it's previously to look like something like this. So here is a swing animation. It is some JavaScript object where you can see the value. It can be like a stream, so animation progress stream. And here is some transform value. It will be like our rotate degrees. So we can easily create some instance to create our animation loader, which will receive a duration, use some observable interval to create the interval for our animation. After that, we can just use a duration and some RX operators, scan and map, and we will receive our animation progress. After that, we can just easily call this instance, use a map to get a progress value. It will be some function which will receive our animation value, our progress value, and animation rotation value. And after that we will just only map current result and put it in our rotate degrees. After that, we can just easily add delay, because RX have a big API, and sometimes we want to add delay to our animation, so we can just do that. So finally, my cat works. I spent nearly 4 hours to do that. But after Oleg asked me, can I make this cat with the handle logic? It's much cooler, I think. Okay. And I can say that I'm like a procrastinator, but in those time I was in San Francisco, and there was like not a lot of time for the open source. I have a lot of fun there. I travel a lot. I work a lot, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time to the open source. So it was the 1st of January. I play with this awesome Corgi. Right now it's the year of the dog, and I start my year with this awesome Corgi. And I play with him and think that, Gregory, you spent a lot of time with playing with the dog, and it's the first day of the new year. Maybe you will not be so lazy and just do something, because right now you have a fun time and you have a free time. And I think, yeah, I can. So I spent nearly 1 hour to code this handle logic cat, because I find such library called dynamic.js, which can send me like a stream of values for my decrease of animation, and after that I can just easily code this cat. So guys, don't be lazy. It's the first idea. So my finally code size with the handle logic weight nearly 66 lines of code, and my K-frame CSS weight 200 lines of code. So GSSS with RxJS is at least at 4 times less, spend less time, less lines of code. Size. Not like library size, but number of lines of code. Because library size, it will be a weight of the file. But this is a little bit different. So right now we can understand that we can use a RxJS convenient with some async code. Because the animation is asynchronous code. Also, we have a lot of async code when we're working with some APIs. So it's convenient to use reactive with it. And right now we are on React meetup. And there is like no React right now. Because I thought about RxJS, not about React. Because my presentation I can easily go to any Angular meetup and talk about Rx. Because in Angular, there is a RxJS. It's inside the Angular. But can I use React with some reactive frameworks with RxJS? Is React reactive? I ask you guys. Who thinks that React is reactive? Can you raise your hand? Brave mans. So React isn't reactive. And in Grammarly, we think that we like to use RxJS in our projects, but we can't do that easily with React. So can we use React, for example, here? For example, to get our square value. So can I render my Rx observable combined lattice in this React H4? Actually, I can just do that, because I will receive those errors. Yeah, I will talk about focal. You're right. Actually, if you want, you can just speak more loudly than me. So in Grammarly, we develop such library called focal. It's like to create React application in FRP way. So we have our problem that we can render observable here. And with focal, we can do that. So we only change our React element to f.h4. And right now it works. And there is like no magic. So focal provides us a list of f elements which will subscribe to our observables, to our observable props. And when our observable props will change, it will automatically render our React elements. Also, we can easily use, for example, focal here to change our stylus. Just create a width and height props. But we have f elements, and it's okay. But in our everyday life, we use a lot of vendor components. For example, stylet components. And can we use, for example, stylet components here for our width and high value? I think no. Because when we render such square element, we understand that width and high props will be object-object. So our stylet components can work with observables. But focal allow us to make a stylet components reactive using lift. Lift receive any component, for example, our stylet div, and allow it to work with observables. So right now, React can render observables and became really reactive. Actually, I don't want to tell you a lot about focal because I just do that a lot of time. And here is a link to one of my talks about reactive state management, because focal is not like only a way to render observables. It's a completely new way to write React application in FRP way. It's a state management which had a lot of functional math inside because it's based on pattern of atom and length. And in this talk, this talk was too funny. It was like a lyric talk about software engineer Alex, who had a terrible project manager Evil, who gave him a lot of tickets. And finally, Alex's life became happy with rainbows, unicorns, because he used Focal in his projects. So right now we can use reactive with a hipster stack. So we can use it with CSS and JS, with React, with Angular. So it's cool. We became a real hipsters. And actually my final example will be some app, like more real world app, because a lot of guys said me that I can use a Rix.js easily with some forms or working with some APIs. So here is a simple example. It's a GIF search app. So we have some input, and when we're typing something in this input, there is no request. But when we stop, we send request to the server. So here is our stream of search events. Actually, right now, we can just explain our change of our input using such streams. And we can just add a switch map operator to this stream and send request to the server. Switch map is like a map, but it will return an observable. Right now, it will be observable Ajax. And finally, we can subscribe to our observables and put result or error if we don't receive an appropriate result, if it will be error on server. But if we use such code base, we will send requests every time to our server. And it's not like our appropriate result. So we need to use such like magic box methodology. And here we can add easily operator debounce time, which will receive some milliseconds time. And it will only check if our stream is not changed, we will make the next step, so the request. But actually, in the most of the time, we use a GIF search only to search for cats and dogs. And our cats and dogs length is 3 symbols. So we don't need to send requests, for example, for CA. We need only to send it for cat. So we can easily add a filter. After that, we don't want to do our work twice and send 2 requests, for example, for cat when we think that we don't want to search a cat, and after that we think, yeah, I want to search a cat. And we can add a distinct until changed operator. So, as you see, Rix.js have a lot of operators, and they allow us to write a complicated code in a few lines. So finally we have such result, which works okay. So right now we have a nice work with API. We can easily work with any forms, and we have a cool API of reactive frameworks. So finally, here is a little bonus, and here is an Elm example. Why it's here? Because my first meet with some reactive frameworks, functional reactive programming, functional programming, was with Elm. Because my tech lead was fond of some functional libraries like Haskell. Every day after work, he worked with Haskell, write some demo, and I think that my tech lead is a cool guy, and I want to be like him. So I think that Elm is a pretty simple language. There is like no monads in Elm, and I can code in Elm easily. But it was my first big problem in my life, because I understand that I can code easily with Elm. Every time I spend the whole weekends and every time shoot in my feet, because line by line I receive a lot of errors. And I doesn't understand why it doesn't works. there was like thousands of errors. So I go to my tech lead and ask, man, can you help me? He told me, yeah, of course. So he helped me. And when I look at him, I was a little bit disappointed because he understands how it works. And I can just imagine how he can. He was like an alien. So after that, I asked him, can you help me? How I can code like you? And he told that I can start from this book. This book called Learn You a Haskell for Great Good. And after this book, I understand the basic principles of functional programming. And I can quote those element examples easily. So the main idea is that reactive programming is not like some way, some tool to program your application, to develop a great frameworks or interface. It's a completely new way to solve your everyday problems, because there are every process in the world you can just describe using a streams. And you can just learn a big API. It doesn't matter. You can only describe any problem in your life using such scheme, using streams, just draw them. And after that, you can solve any problem in your everyday work. So for me, a reactive frameworks is not a tool. It's something like lifestyles. And it's too interesting. And finally, in Grammarly, we like reactive frameworks, and we use it in our everyday life. We write a focal and a lot of new libraries, and we are hiring. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gregory. Actually, we don't have time for questions now, but I think Gregory will be available after the second talk. Yeah. So you could ask him anything, just torture him. And now I want to introduce you to Ostap Chervak, who will be talking about, I remember that. He'll be talking about his experience of building open source framework, PUA, in his company. So, Ostap, there's some technical thing going on. Are you hot in here?
One. Okay.
You're hot in here, yeah? Yeah, me too. Actually, we can open some windows to let the fresh air in if you want to. Where are you going?
One. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, it's okay.
Cool. Jumbo, nice to meet you again. Why you changed anything? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so nice to be with you again. First of all, I want to say thanks for the React Kyiv organizers that give me ability to show my framework. So hope you are doing well at this late time. In case you missed the announcement, my name is Ostap, and I'm working in a company called Strikesoft. And today I'm thrilled to announce our first open source project, POA, the opinionated React framework. And before we start deep diving into POA, there is a story behind the name of the framework. A while ago, my wife and I were on a honeymoon in Zanzibar. Local people talk Swahili there. I'm not a linguist as my wife, so I understand only 2 words in Swahili. Jambo means hi or how are you, and poa means I feel cool or fine, something like that. So once when I got drunk there, in a small paradise, I realized that I want to spend less time coding front end and more time swimming and relaxing. So I want the framework to do the job for me. And you know what's coming next? The weeks of coding, experimenting, designing the POA. And here it is, POA, the Opinionated React Framework. Probably you're not familiar with the word opinionated regarding programming, so I will try to explain. Opinionated means that we do not guarantee that this framework will suit all your cases. We use some design decisions, and some parts of the framework are closed to be easier and elegant. We have our vision on how framework API should be like. We follow zero configuration practices and love conventions over configurations. In general, we have some opinions, and we are not going to change those. POA is not something revolutionary new. To be fair, we did not implement any of these core libraries by ourselves. It's just our experience on building front-end with some level of abstraction on top of mostly third-party libraries. We try to take the best things, in our opinion, from popular frameworks like Ember, dependency injection mechanisms, routing and state management solution from Vue.js. We want to make the framework as Angular with scoped packaging, and we have some more in the pocket. But why did you create another framework? You might say, and you will be right, actually. We just created another framework. But if you GitHub it, there are not that many React frameworks at all. And there are few giving you ability to use whole React ecosystem and take decisions out of developers' responsibility, like thinking about architecture, folder structuring, routing, state management, internationalization, picking libraries, and so on and so on. So POA primary goal is to simplify front-end development in Structuresoft and boost teams' productivity with writing on high-level abstraction instead of doing same stuff in same projects. In Structuresoft, we use similar architecture patterns. We always end up with the same naming conventions and use same pool of libraries and so on and so on. On the other hand, we have to be we need to be flexible in our business logic implementation and be ready to scale our projects quickly. So the best demonstration about what I'm talking about is the illustration of my daily job. It always starts like new project, and I see the task in Jira like to handle only one language in a web application. And I like ask my project manager, do we need another language? No, of course no. There is no time for that. The customer did not pay that. Okay, like, do you agree? Yeah, of course, yeah. So afterwards, I see the new task in Jira, like, Ostap, can you add the new language? And I say, you just say that there will be only one. They change their mind, we need to add more language. And you're like, we need to find all the strings in the project, we need to add the localization library, and so on and so on. So, I hope that POA will manage at least some of those and more in the future of this problem. So, today, we will cover these packages in POA. POA router, POA state, and POA SHL.js, and POA internationalization library, I18N. These packages are completely separated, thanks to the learner and the micro bundle for the managing all hell that we have. These packages can be used separately, at least for now. You even do not need to install those. So all you need is the love and the POA core package. POA core package. It provides public API and manage boot in your application. So let's start with the router. First of all, I should answer the first question. No, we did not write our custom router. Actually, from the beginning of the framework, POA is now have the version 5, actually. We used React Router v4 since I was tired using custom routing solution and I want to use something well-known, stable and community-driven. But I was angry of the feeling that React Router paradigms provide the way that we need to write the business logic in our components. And I was really angry about that. So, but we still stick with it. We add this API on top of it, like the wrapper of the React Router to declare the routes in the decorators. Now we completely move away from that. But we still have a lot of problems. Actually, the first one was the decorators. It's not in the specification of the JavaScript, so we need to move away from there. We have the problems with nested routing because our internal API does not support it at all. We do not have normal hooks of the routing, like the can activate, can deactivate, will resolve, and so on. And we do not have normal dependency injection mechanism. So I start to realize that we do fighting with React Router and we need another solution. So I start searching, and here is from my private conversation, and there was like, we need to find something that is that have static API. It should be for React and then for React Native, and it should have the hooks. And actually, we find one. It's a MobX little router. Actually, it has a lot of API internally, but it's okay for us because we will add our elegant API on top of it. So it have the core features like it manage all his states in a MobX of the observables. It have dynamically loaded roads. It have the middleware layer. It's view agnostic. It supports React Native, and it uses MobX under the hood. Here's how it looks like to boot POA application with the routing. So actually, it's easier as declare your component, declare your roads, and call the boot function from the POA core package. Actually, there is a ton of fancy stuff in routing, like lazy roads, like guards, hooks, and so on. But you will find this in the framework documentation. So, state management. The most hyped topic in all Telegram channels, Gitter, Spectrum, and there is a lot of talks, as you see, regarding what you should pick, the focal lyrics, MobX, Redux, Flux, native Flux, and so on and so on. But in POA, we decide to go with MobX under the hood and Seychelles.js on top of it. So Seychelles, I think you haven't heard about the Seychelles.js. So Seychelles.js is a Microsoft Outlook team project. Seychelles.js is a data flow framework based on the Flux architecture. Seychelles is an attempt to combine the best of the several data flows patterns typically used to drive the React-based UI. In details, he has the Flux as a data flow, Redux as a single store pattern, and MobX for the view rendering. So our goals in our POA state management, it should have the central dispatcher, it should have the single store pattern, it should use Mobix for the optimized viewer rendering, it should not use decorators, classes, and this keyword. And it should be unidirectional in his data flow. Yeah. So it is how it looks like, our internal state management. You can see here at the top, here there is an import of 3 functions: the create action, the add mutator, and add side effects. So first of all, you create an action, give it an ID, and pass the function that receive the arguments, that the action receive the arguments, and return the payload of the action. Then you add mutator to this action. So the only way to change the store is in mutator. So you just change the store. There is no reducers, no immutability, and it's backed by Mobix. And of course, it has a built-in solution for the side effects. So side effects function received an action as an add mutator. And the second function is async function that receive the payload of the action, the store, router, and any other injected things that you need. So we can describe our side effects in just plain JavaScript async functions. No magic there. Then you declare the initial state, pass the initial state into the boot function and your actions. And at the end, somewhere you invoke the action, like make fancy. So it was good. I love Seychelles, but there was one more thing, that what I need is to use a weighting of the actions. So it's something like, I want to write codes that looks like this. It was in a Vue.js, so I was like, we have a challenge. We need to. I want this way of making UI. So I go to the GitHub, raise an issue, write to the developers, and they'd say like, sorry, Ostap, it's denied by the design of the Seychelles.js. You just cannot do it. We do not want to support it, and it's not in our ideology. So I end up with a custom solution. So we fork the Seychelles.js, make some changes, and encapsulate it in POA Seychelles.js library. So, the last but not least, the internationalization module. Localization is one of the ways we need in our application. Since our target audience is Sweden, we always need at least 2 localization, English and Swedish. And I know that working locally with only 2 localization files is not hard. We still face a lot of problems. And I18 Next is the way that we are doing things in POA. So actually, we create a wrapper around the A18 Next library. So if you're not familiar with it, it's an internalization framework written in and for JavaScript. But it much more than that. I18 Next goes beyond just providing the standard I18 Next features such as plurals, context, interpolation format. It provides a complete solution to localize your product from the web to mobile and desktop. So it all sounds cool, but I found that in our application, sometimes our bootstrapping of the application, initial loading, should be asynchronous. We need to do something before the application loading, like fetch localization from the server before rendering any UI at all. So you, as React developers, you will put the component did mount, like the small state in your root component, and actually you will end up with putting the business logic in your components that we're trying to avoid. So in POA, there is an asynchronous bootstrapping. It looks like, for example, you have some IIT Next plugin that fetches the data from the server. You declare the application loading placeholder. You put the configuration for IIT Next in the boot function, and it will return promise. So you can just easily await on your when your application is bootstrapping. So our roadmap, near future and long-term goals. In near future, we are document all the things because our documentation is not fully ready yet. As the next step, we add built-in form solution based on the Formic library. Then we will go where we want to build add built-in HTTP client. Then build-in solution for login, and add plugin system to extend some of the POA functionality. In long-term goals, we want to provide a CLI to stop the project folder structure and reduce boilerplate of writing the actions, mutators, and side effects. Then we want to support the server-side rendering and then the React Native support. So I think you will have the quick questions, so I will answer that. Can I use Redux instead of Mobex? Nope. Is it production ready? Yes. We wrote several applications in POA, and we're rewriting some of those now to the POA version 5. Is it feature complete? For the small and medium sizes apps, yes. And we are working to add more features. But the most important thing for now is to improve our documentation. Can I contribute to it? Yeah, we are open to suggestions and improvements. So just raise an issue and on GitHub and start the discussion. It's our first time of open sourcing something, so we probably do not know all the things. So we will be happy if you align us in something. Can I be sure that you will maintain the framework? Actually, yes, because it's backed by Structuresoft. It's a pretty big company. It have the 2 offices in Kyiv and Sweden. So actually, we rely on this framework in production. So we definitely will update it and bug fix it. So where is the starting point to get started with the POA? Actually, it's our GitHub. So you can just Google it and or put in your address bar. So actually, it's all for me, and what I want is to say thanks for our design team for this awesome logo, awesome presentation design, and my company to give me ability to write this framework, test it, and release it to production. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ostap. We have, as in previous time, no time for questions. This was the last talk of the meetup. I don't know. Meetup. Do not start going out. We have a surprise for you, as it is the birthday. What is the birthday without a cake? So we made a large cake for the React Kyiv anniversary. Guys, where is the cake? Actually, it is very, very tasty. We went to the cake store for the. It is very tasty. We went to the cake store to try different types of cakes, and this one was, wow! It is really nice. Yeah, it's a cake! Woohoo! So you can look at it. While it is so beautiful, now we can go home. Now we want to rearrange a little bit the space here, so everyone can grab a piece of cake and enjoy it, so it will be comfortable for everyone. And we will slice it so it won't be as beautiful as it is now, but it is very, very tasty. Yeah, you can take a photo. Можем эти вот несколько рядов освободить немного? Мы сюда поставим сейчас стол. Стулья вон туда можно поставить. Один на один они складываются. Так, сейчас.